He was a Hollywood legend and award-winning actor that rose to the rank of Brigadier General and earned some of the US military's highest awards, including the Distinguished Flying Cross. Today, we're going to look at the lifetimes and campaigns of an actor whose courage extended far beyond the silver screen, Jimmy Stewart. During World War II, Stewart answered the call of duty, volunteering for one of the most perilous roles in the entire conflict, flying bombing missions with the US Army Air Corps over Nazi-occupied Europe. In today's video, we'll look at his extraordinary military career and medals, as well as dive into more detail in some of the lesser-known medals that we haven't covered before. Stewart's ribbon bar looks like he has 5 Gallantry, Achievement or Commendation medals, 2 with multiple awards, 2 ribbon awards, 5 Expeditionary, Campaign or Service medals, 1 Reserve medal, and 1 Foreign Medal award. James Maitland Stewart, known as Jimmy, was born on the 20th of May 1908 in Indiana, a small town in Pennsylvania. His parents owned a general store that was founded by his grandfather. Raised along with 2 sisters, Stewart had a stable upbringing and attended Princeton University, graduating with a degree in architecture in 1932. Struggling for work like many men during the Depression of the 1930s, Stewart worked on Broadway as a setup man. Having gained a liking for theatre whilst at university, Stewart started to participate in acting, firstly appearing in small parts and gradually building up his experience until he was discovered by Hollywood in 1935, signing a contract with MGM Studios. By 1940, he was a huge star, having made over 20 feature films alongside famous actors such as Clark Gable and Ginger Rogers. During this period, in his free time, Stewart developed a passion for flying after paying $15 for a flight in a barnstormer. In 1935, he qualified for his civilian pilot's license and purchased his own plane, flying frequently across the country. He even navigated railway tracks to find his way home to visit his family in Pennsylvania. In 1940, with the US government anticipating conflict likely on the horizon in Europe or Asia, the US instituted a peacetime draft in September. The law, known as the Selective Service Act, required 900,000 men between the ages of 20 and 36 to be drafted each year. Stewart was initially drafted in the ballot, but being underweight, failed the medical examination. Stewart then went on a programme of eating high-calorie food to gain weight and re-enlisted in the Army Air Corps, becoming the first Hollywood star to enlist before and during World War II. It's difficult to imagine modern actors having the same sense of patriotism that the generation of Stewarts had. For Stewart, his family had a long line of military tradition, ranging from the Revolutionary Wars to the Civil War, and his father even served in the Spanish-American War and in World War I. For him, military service was a family tradition. At 32 years old, Stewart reported for duty as Private James Stewart in March 1941 at Fort MacArthur near San Diego, and was assigned to the Army Air Corps. He was too old for aviation cadet training, so applied for an Air Corps commission, both as a qualified commercial pilot and college graduate. To meet the Air Corps' proficiency requirements, Stewart needed an additional 100 hours of flight time, which he personally funded at a nearby airfield. After passing a rigorous proficiency exam, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in January 1942, a month or so after Pearl Harbor. As he was a highly experienced aviator, he initially served stateside as a flight instructor, training pilots on the 4-engined B-17 and B-24 bombers. However, frustrated by nearly 2 years being kept out of combat, he repeatedly requested overseas assignments. Finally, the authorities relented in November 1943. Stewart, now a captain, was transferred to Europe. He arrived in RAF Tibenham in East Anglia, England. Stewart became an operations officer for the 703rd Bomb Squadron. This was part of the 445th Bombardment Group of the 8th Air Force. From 1943 to 45, this part of England was teeming with US and RAF bomber and fighter bases. The Allied strategic bombing campaign against Germany was conducted principally from this area of the United Kingdom. Over the course of the war, approximately 200,000 US personnel were stationed in this area. They would operate from 67 US bases in East Anglia. Generally speaking, in Norfolk, B-24 bombers were located, and in Suffolk, B-17s. Long-range fighters such as the P-47s or Lightnings and Mustangs were based along the coastal regions. The larger bases would be manned by around 3,000 personnel. You can imagine a scene of wild weekly dances with the local ladies, Yank pilots moaning about warm British beer, the occasional punch-up between flight crews, and the roar of bombers flying over quaint country villages. I just added here the current surviving US air bases in this part of the UK for reference in case any veterans who served in either of these bases recognises them. A hard but fair officer, Stewart quickly won the trust and respect of his men and volunteered to fly as much as he could. Stewart was known to continually test crew members on SOPs and other hypothetical issues to ensure that they knew their drills inside out. He also focused on looking after the welfare of his men, using his celebrity status to organise dances and sometimes playing piano himself. His first mission was targeting U-boat pens in the German port of Kiel. 3 days later, he flew again on a raid in Bremen in North Germany. His third mission was perhaps his most notable, which was a December 1943 mission to Calais to target V-1 rocket launch sites. These were being built in preparation for the V-1 rocket campaign aimed at London during 1944. In late 1943, Allied forces began targeting German facilities that were thought to be developing advanced weapons like the V-1 and V-2 rockets. The mission involved flying at a low altitude of 12,000 feet, which was unusual for B-24s, and Stewart took only volunteers for the dangerous mission. The mission was a success, with an estimated 12 launches or sites destroyed. In January 1944, he was promoted to Major. On a raid to Ludwigshafen in Germany, due to a navigational error by his senior on the return run, his bombing group turned to fly over German-occupied Paris, which was heavily defended. Over 60 German fighters attacked his formation, causing significant losses to the lead element. Stewart managed to keep his immediate formation packed tight and emerged unscathed due to his calm leadership. Never displaying fear or raising his voice, and always calm and collected, he became known as Lucky Jimmy. For instance, in one mission, flying over the English Channel, Stewart's plane developed engine problems and had to turn back. Taking their position in the formation as group leader, the Liberty Bell was shot down. Only 3 parachutes were seen bailing out of the plane. On those occasions when he was not flying missions, Stewart always remained at the control tower until the last B-24 returned home or was accounted for. One of his most notable assignments was serving as the flight leader of a 1,000 plane raid on Berlin. During these missions, from the co-pilot seat of a B-24 Liberator bomber, Stewart would command anywhere between 25 to 150 planes, depending on whether he was lead, squadron or wing commander for the mission. Stewart's force took part in a concentrated attack against the German aircraft industry during Big Week between the 20th and 25th of February 1944. During the period, Stewart flew missions over the Netherlands, the city of Gotha, and near Nuremberg in Germany. Targets included aircraft production factories and ball bearing plants. During a raid on Berth, a town near Nuremberg, Stewart was nearly killed when an 88mm shell blew a hole between him and his pilot. His plane, the Dixie Flyer, incredibly made it home, having most of its fuselage blown in tatters and 2 engines inoperative. It's here reportedly he was awarded one of his Distinguished Flying Crosses for holding his formation together under intense enemy fire. By the end of Big Week, Allied air forces flew some 6,000 sorties, lost 357 bombers, 28 escort fighters, and more than 2,000 airmen killed or captured. Apparently, German leaders have put a bounty on Stuart's head, along with other Hollywood actors such as Clark Gable, due to the propaganda value capturing one of these could bring about for Nazi Germany. After flying 12 missions with the 445th, in March 1944, Stewart was transferred to the 453rd Bombardment Group. The group was based at nearby RAF Old Buckenham. Stewart would be their group operations officer. In this post, he proved himself as one of the best mission planners in the air service. The top brass also hoped this role would see Stewart spend less time in the air. He was then promoted in the summer of 1944 to Lieutenant Colonel. The pressure and responsibility of planning the missions and briefing the crews must have been immense for Stewart. Allegedly, at some points during the war, he lived off a diet of ice cream and peanut butter, as it was the only thing he could keep down due to the stress. During June 1944, Stewart's bombers focused on supporting the D-Day missions. Overall, during his service as Deputy Commander of the Bombardment Wing, he was awarded 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 3 Air Medals, and a Croix de Guerre with Palm by France. In March 1945, he was promoted full colonel. At the end of his service, he had flown 20 combat missions. His superiors, such as General Curtis LeMay and James Doolittle, thought Stewart a reliable and competent officer. So let's have a look in more detail at 3 medals Stewart did receive and that we've not covered before in previous videos. The Croix de Guerre, Air Force Distinguished Service Medal, and Presidential Medal of Freedom. The Croix de Guerre was established in 1915 by the French government. The medal may only be awarded either as an individual award or as a unit award to those soldiers who distinguish themselves by acts of heroism involving combat with the enemy. Separate French medals exist for the First and Second World War. The medal itself consists of a square cross medal on 2 cross swords, hanging from a ribbon with various degree pins. The centre of the cross is a medallion that typically displays the profile of Marianne, a national symbol of the French Republic. It's loosely equivalent to a mention in dispatches, though there are 4 degrees. The medal can be plain, or with bronze palm, gold star, or bronze star, depending on what level the recipient was mentioned. Stewart was mentioned at Army level, so received a bronze palm. In the United States, the medal was accepted as a foreign decoration. The World War II issue ribbon is green with thick red stripes on the outer edges and 3 thin red stripes near the centre. Serving from Old Buckenham, the 453rd flew 259 missions in B-24 Liberators. They dropped 15,804 tons of bombs. In the process, they lost 58 aircraft and 366 servicemen. Stewart stated, "The military taught me discipline, responsibility and the importance of teamwork, lessons that stayed with me throughout my life." Returning to the United States in the summer of 1945, Stewart helped campaign for the establishment of the United States Air Force. He later transferred to the US Air Force Reserve after the US Army Air Force became an independent branch. During active duty periods, Stewart served with the Strategic Air Command and qualified on the B-47 and B-52 planes. In 1959, he was promoted to Brigadier General. Stewart even participated as an observer during a B-52 bombing mission during the Vietnam War in 1966. Serving for 27 years, Stewart finally retired from the Air Force on the 31st of May 1968. At the end of his career, Jimmy Stewart was awarded an Air Force Distinguished Service Medal. This is a typical decoration for a retiring Brigadier General, although there are unusual cases of the medal being awarded to non-general officers, such as astronauts. Established in 1950, it is awarded to US Air Force personnel, and given for exceptionally meritorious service in a duty of great responsibility, hence why it goes in the main to generals. The obverse design has a sunburst of 13 gold rays separated by 13 white enamelled stars, with a semi-precious blue stone in the centre. The reverse of the medal is plain and suitable for engraving. The star is suspended from the ribbon by a wide slotted bar which consists of stylised wings, symbolic of the Air Force. The ribbon has a wide centre stripe of white flanked on either side by a thin stripe of old gold, a wide stripe of ultramarine blue, and a narrow stripe of old gold at the edges. The blue stone in the centre represents the vault of the heavens. The 13 stars represent the original colonies and man's chain of achievements. The sunburst represents the glory that accompanies great achievements, and the rays depict man's quest for light and knowledge. Heavy stuff. Additional awards are with oak leaf cluster, and it can also come with a combat sea device. During the 1980s, US President Ronald Reagan presented Stewart with a Presidential Medal of Freedom. This was for his contribution to the arts and his military service. The medal is considered the US government's highest civilian honour. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is the supreme civilian decoration that can be awarded at the discretion of the President. The obverse is in the form of a golden star with white enamel with a red enamel pentagon behind it. The central disc bears 13 gold stars on a blue enamel background taken from the Great Seal of the United States within a golden ring. Golden bald eagles with spread wings stand between the points of the star. It is worn around the neck on a blue ribbon having white edge stripes. Therefore, in summary, for Jimmy Stewart, we have Distinguished Service Medal, Distinguished Flying Cross with oak leaf cluster, Air Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters, Army Commendation Medal, Presidential Unit Citation, Presidential Medal of Freedom, American Defense Service Medal, American Campaign Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with Silver Service Star, although sources differ, World War II Victory Medal, National Defense Service Medal, possibly for service in the Korean period or Vietnam, Longevity Service Award Ribbon with Silver Oak Leaf Cluster, Armed Forces Reserve Medal with Silver Hourglass Device, and finally a foreign award, the French 1939-45 Croix de Guerre with Palm. General Stewart also earned his command-rated pilot rings and Mach 2 pin. Sadly, World War II wouldn't be the last war that would have an impact on the Stewart family. Tragically, in 1969, his stepson, First Lieutenant Ron McLean, was killed in Vietnam with the US Marines during an ambush. Stewart states his military service was the most important thing he ever accomplished. He passed away in July 1997 at the age of 89 and was buried with full military honours at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Thanks for watching. I hope you found some value from this, and I'll see you in the next one.